it's a decision that affects everyone, not just you, right? It's a selfish decision to immigrate. That's the truth. It's a very selfish decision. You have to do it. If you have the bug in you, you just have to follow your dreams. And everyone in our happy supports and approves. And everyone's very happy for us because they see this is our dream. But it's not easy for them.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode number 26 of the Immigrants Life podcast, where we share stories of people who left their country to chase a better life. I'm Daniel De Biasi, and in this episode I had the pleasure of chatting with Sylvia. She's originally from Brazil, and her first immigration experience was after graduating from university, when she decided to do a master's degree in Australia. When she was in Australia, Sylvia met her husband, and together they moved back to Brazil. They soon realized they couldn't fit in with the culture anymore, so they decided to move abroad again. But the process of moving abroad and moving to Canada took them several years. In the meantime, they were living in limbo, where they couldn't really start a life because they knew they would leave soon, which means they couldn't buy new furniture or start a new career or invest in their life in Brazil. She's been now living in Canada and abroad for several years, and recently, Sylvia and her friend Jadranka started a blog titled The Practical Immigrant, where they share their experiences and tips as immigrant in Canada. You can check it out at thepracticalimmigrant.com. Before moving to my conversation with Sylvia, make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. It would be great if you leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Podchaser. And now, please enjoy my conversation with Sylvia. Hi Sylvia, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Sylvia, you're originally from São Paulo in Brazil, right? And you now live in Toronto, Canada. What made you decide to leave Brazil?
I was younger, on my 20-something, to study. So I wanted to do a master's degree outside of Brazil. So I picked Australia for several reasons. First of all, it was just cool going to Australia and having this opportunity to study there. And it was a English-spoken English, so it was easy for me to do a master's degree there. Not easy, but easier. And it was just this opportunity, weighing all the costs and pros and cons against other countries. Australia was the best option.
Okay, but why did you decide to do a master in outside of Brazil?
That's a tough one because I think I always had that on my mind that I would graduate, work a bit in Brazil, and then before kind of settling in professionally, I wanted to get a standard of my degree, and I always thought it would be overseas. I don't know why. I just wanted to have experience since very young. It's
more for the experience, or it's more for the value of the master overseas?
No. They have amazing courses there. It was a different master's degree that I opted. Then I studied coaching, and that was a new thing. So it was one of the first universities offering this course, but it wasn't because of the course, to be honest, that I decided to move and to study. It was just the experience of being young and having to complete this stage of my life before I got married and had kids or anything like that. It was much more the experience of traveling.
Okay, so at this point, your idea was to go to Australia, get your master, and come back to Brazil and start your career, right?
Yeah, I was open to whatever happened because I always loved to travel. I always had this kind of a bug in me. So I was always open. So I went kind of, okay, I'm just going, let's see what happens. But so what happened is I stayed in Australia for 3 years and a half, almost 4 years. I met my then boyfriend and later husband there, and he's also Brazilian. He stayed there for, so he was already there for 4 years, and together he stayed up to 7 years. So I finished my course, and we stayed a little longer. I restarted my career there, but before coming back to that stage, both of us were very homesick of Brazil, and then we decided to go back to Brazil to try life as adults, professionally graduated adults in Brazil. So we went back to Brazil to try that on and to get married and get to know each other's family because we met overseas. And it was a good experience. So after a year in Brazil, we kind of look at each other. We kind of have this agreement. Let's give a year and see how it is, because it had been so long that we were out of it, that we couldn't come back and just fit well again. So we were very Anglo-Saxonized, as we joke. And we decided, no, we really want to immigrate. And that was a solid decision of immigrating to a new country and living for the rest of our lives there. So then we were always questioning, so should we go back to Australia, which we love, of course, or should we go somewhere else? And Canada was the second option and only option. And we ended up deciding Canada. You asked me why Canada against Australia. There are several reasons. Some of those we still aren't sure if we took the right decision or not. But for sure, the most important of all is that in Canada, we're closer to Brazil than we are from being in Australia.
Because how long does it take from Brazil to go to Australia, to fly to Australia?
So to fly to Australia from Brazil, it's a 24-hour flight, plus so you stop somewhere. So there are 2 flights plus 24 hours. And then you have a huge time zone difference. I think it's about 14 hours, 12 hours, depends on the time of the year. And that complicates it a lot. So every time you need to talk to your family, you want to talk to your family. It has to be early morning or late night. And the distance is very expensive as well. So if we, like now here in Canada, we always have family coming around. When we were in Australia, we wouldn't. Not everyone would be able to afford to go that often to visit us. So
it gets more expensive.
It gets really much more expensive, like 3 times more expensive. Now we're a family of 5. Like I have 3 kids with my husband. So if we think of being in Australia, having to pay 5 tickets to go back just to visit, it's a lot.
It's not just the flights itself, even the time off you have to take from work. Because the longer it takes to fly there, the more days you have to take off for work.
Yes.
Going back to when you left Brazil for the first time to move to Australia, how easy was for you to get a visa to study abroad?
Let me try to remember that. It's been a while now. It was a student visa. So if you pay for the university and you qualify for that and you had enough sufficient English and sufficient amount of money to live for, I don't know, X amount of months, they calculate the full course, you can get the student visa. That's been a while now. I don't know. I'm talking 2004, 2005. So I don't know if it changed or not. I know immigration in Australia changed a lot, but I haven't been following, to be honest. But it's similar process here in Canada. So student visas are quite simple, expensive, but simple. So you pay kind of a big fee upfront for the university plus the visa and plus demonstrating that you have some funds to support yourself through those months. Both Australia and Canada do allow you to work 20 hours while you're studying, depending on the university or the type of course you're taking. So that helps a lot. But this is not a money you should count to prove that you have enough funds. You should have enough funds regardless if you're going to be able to work the 20 hours or not, wherever you are. So it was quite simple. It was just a matter of choosing the right course and choosing what I wanted to really study and the practicalities. Another reason I chose in Australia at that time was because I had a really good friend. One of my best friends was already living in Australia. So I knew I had some support and I could come and live with her as soon as I arrived. That helped a lot. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have done it all by myself. So that was good.
Because you left when you were, early 20s, right?
Yeah.
You left alone or you just left, you went to Australia?
Yeah, I left alone. I was not recently grad, but I had been working so I graduated in psychology in Brazil, and then I worked for about a year and a half in the market and in human resource. That's my field. And before I got too much into the career path, I said, no, that's it. Let me stop it here before it goes too far, so I can't stop. And this is the time I want to study now. This is my dream. So I did that. It was just one of the craziest decisions. My friends would look at me and say, "You're crazy. You're just this amazing career. You're having this amazing path. Why are you interrupting it now?" I said, "Oh, is it now or never?" Right?
Yeah.
So I did it and went. And I had this friend who was already living in Australia. We agreed I would live with her, and it was super fun. It was a great experience. And yeah, so I just arrived. with 2 or 3 suitcases. I can't remember because I intended to be there for 1 year and a half or 2. And yeah, that was it. And get to start a new life there.
Just a question for the listener in Brazil, for example, or listener that wants to take the same path and go and study abroad. In your experience, roughly, do you remember what was the requirement money-wise? Because if I remember correctly, for a work permit, when I moved to New Zealand, I think it was around $3,000 you have to prove that you have an account. Was roughly the same for a student? Was more?
To be honest, I wouldn't be able to tell you the right amount, but I'm sure it is an average. I would say maybe $1,000 per month or something like that. At least I think in Canada it's like this. I might be saying it wrong, but I think it's an average of $1,000 or $1,500 per month.
Which sounds fair. I mean, that's
it's
pretty
a
much
minimum wage.
Usually.
It's the amount you would get in a minimum wage here. So it's enough for you to support yourself. And it depends if you're coming as a couple, with family, with kids. So that amount changes as well.
Hey, Daniel's here. I did some research, and to get a student visa for Australia, the proof of fund or the money you need to have is 21,000 Australian dollar for the whole year, which is 1,700 or 1,700 Australian dollar per month. If you have a partner, you need to add an extra 7,000, and if you have children, you have to add an additional $3,000 per child. Canada is cheaper. You need to prove you only have 10,000 Canadian dollar, which is about $800 per month. For your partner, there's an extra $4,000 and $3,000 per child. I put the links to the Australian and Canadian immigration in the show notes. You can find them at immigrantslife.com/episode 26. And keep in mind that if you live in a city in Canada, it might be very challenging, if not impossible, to live on $800 a month. Rent alone can be more than that. Just something to keep in mind if you're considering coming on a student visa. If you have any question about Immigration Canada, you can send them to us by visiting immigrantslife.com/immigration. Alex, the Canadian immigration advisor from episode 21, will answer your question in a future episode. And now, let's get back to the conversation with Sylvia. So for somebody that wants to study for here, you need to save quite a bit of money. You can't have like a few paychecks in your account.
Plus you do need to demonstrate quite a bit of money. Plus, well, to be fair, if you're young, you can still use the support of your family. And that's what a lot of Brazilians do. It really depends on the culture. In Brazilian culture, you still live with your parents for a long time, and they do support you different ways. So they allow you to do this. You don't have to have your own money. You can borrow the money.
So, okay, for young people or young people, they don't have all this money saved. They can use the support of the family to prove that they have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely helps. Because if you started when you're 20, unless you come from a rich family, there's no way you have $20,000 in your account, or $10,000 in your account if you just start working. So 2 things important here, I think, for student visas. There are 2 different type of visas. I think it's the same still for Australia. So you can go and study English, and you can go and study in a university. So my case was in university, and for that, I had to have already a good level in English. And not everyone in Brazil has a good level of English, even they study English at school. So it is an extra effort. If you're coming from Brazil, it's just something we don't have that easily given at schools. We have English at school, but to be able to go to a university and have a good degree there or college degree, you have to have certain, I can remember for IELTS, so the test they're using now, you have to have, I think it's above 7th grade. Okay, so it's a good English level.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good things to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your story. Okay, at this point, your husband, were you already married when you moved to Toronto, or you got married later?
Yes. No, we got engaged before leaving Australia. So we got engaged, and then we went back to Brazil and got married in Brazil, get to know each other's families and be a little bit with the family. So it's actually about to 7 years in Brazil when we were back until we figure out which visa to take and how to properly immigrate, because we really wanted this time to move already as a permanent resident, not going again on student visas and keep changing visas, because that was a big story as well. So we moved with my oldest daughter, who was 1 then.
So you left Brazil. You said, okay, I don't want to be in Brazil anymore. I want to immigrate. And of course, at that point, you have a family. You want a more like stable situation, at least for the immigration point of view. So you want to just get permanent resident, settle down, and don't worry about the immigration process anymore because it's so frustrating. But why did you decide to leave? Because you had a family, you already have a kid. So even leaving a country and the support of your family around you, it gets even harder. So why did you decide to leave Brazil?
That's the big story of all. So as I said, we got back from Australia and we stayed about a year there in Brazil, and we were already working and life was catching back again, going back to the comfort zone. And we looked at each other and said, okay, no, we don't want to be here forever. First step, but most important, I think that if we have to pick one big reason, is crime rates in Brazil is crazy, and corruption and the system, like ethical system in Brazil, is kind of crazy as well. We weren't fitting anymore. We did not fit well with the culture anymore, overall culture. So we decided to immigrate. But once I had made that decision, of course, we got married and we had a kid and family was around. So it wasn't easy to actually, first, it wasn't easy to get the visa then. So it took us about 2 or 3 times to try out the visa, and we had denials until we finally got the PR, because we were doing it all by ourselves. So filling up the paperwork, we never hired anyone. So I was trying to study the laws and study everything.
Oh, wow.
And because of that, I made a few mistakes. So we had 2 denials. Then we had the baby. So actually, when we were granted the permanent residency in Canada, I was pregnant for my first child in Brazil, which is very comfortable. So you know everyone, you will have family around, everyone to help you in this very specific moment, especially for a woman. So we decided to hold a bit, even if the PR was granted. So we said, okay, let's have the baby here, and then we will decide what we want to do. So we ended up, since we sent the paperwork until actually moved to Canada, about 5 years.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't like really a quick decision.
Yeah, the whole decision process took us 5 years. And then again, we have to save money, and then you spend the money, you have to save money and spend the money. So it's also a big story there, because you have to have a certain amount of money to arrive.
Because at this point, I don't know exactly how it works for a family, but it gets more complicated, because when you travel on your own, you only need a visa. If you get approved one visa, you're good to go. In a family, how does that work? You have to apply for every single person? Is one application all combined together? Mm-hmm. How does that work?
It is one application combined. In our case, we applied under my skill, because psychology was in demand skill for Canada. But that was before they changed all the rules. So we were kind of lucky to get one of the last applications through the old rules, which was such a simpler and easier system, not the pool that you have now with points. It was just a matter of filling up the requirements, and we had those. So it is one application for all, but everyone has to be screened. So even my baby daughter, she had to participate on this application. So we had to pause as soon as I got pregnant and we were granted. We actually couldn't get the visa yet because I was pregnant, and immigration asked us to hold on. As soon as she was born, we had to enroll her on the application instead of starting a whole new application for her. So I think she was about 1 week old, and we took her passport and photos and screened her for the exams, the physical exams and everything for her to join the application. Yeah, a lot of paperwork.
Well, must be. I mean, I don't even know how you did it all by yourself. I tried to do it here in Canada. I gave up. I had to hire somebody. I couldn't do it.
It's a few mistakes. There were a few mistakes in the process, but we finally got it.
The whole process took 5 years. Do you think if you didn't make those mistakes, would it be much less?
Yes, after the last time we did it with all the paper correct, it was just 1 year. But it depends on immigration, because before this 1 year, there was a backlog of 3 years. So whoever applied before that year had a backlog of 3 years to get responses. And then they changed the system. And we got the backlog for 1 year. And then they changed the system. So people are now waiting months instead of a year.
How did you live those 5 years in waiting to move abroad?
Yeah, life was just catching up. We were working on our professions and our careers. We were just happy to be around with family, enjoying life, and progressing as young couple, recently married couple. But there was this weird zone where we wouldn't buy furniture for our house or do improvements on our lives, because we always had our lives on hold because we knew we would move. It was kind of a limbo phase as well. So we wouldn't invest that much on our careers. We wouldn't invest that much on even relationships, I would say. I don't know. It's just, we knew we wanted to get out. So, and it was a huge secret also. So we couldn't share that with everyone because we wanted it to happen. So
why you didn't want to share it?
It's just when you really wish for something, or you maybe a mythical thing, just to hold a little bit. So, and a lot of, not everyone was happy with us leaving. So we had family, and we only wanted to share with everyone when we were 100% sure that it would happen. Otherwise, why make them sad? Because it's not easy. It's a decision that affects everyone, not just you, right?
Oh, totally.
It's a selfish decision to immigrate. That's the truth. It's a very selfish decision.
Yes, you're actually right. It is. Never thought about it that way.
Yeah, it is. It is very selfish, and you have to do it. If you have the bug in you, you just have to follow your dreams. And everyone in our happy supports and approves. They are my mom, my dad, and my husband's family. Everyone's very happy for us because they see this is our dream. But it's not easy for them.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. For parents, I don't know. I'm not a parent, but it must be like really hard to see your kids go on the other side of the world, or like far away from home.
With the grandkids, yeah.
Exactly. It's even worse.
Yeah.
So how was it for them then? Was it like a really hard, or they got used to it in those 5 years?
Yeah. So I think it was about 2 years before we moved, or 3 years before we moved, that we told everyone 100% certain that it would happen. We always gave them glimpse, hey, we would love to live overseas, but we never actually said we're moving out. There was a process for everyone, both sides. I think for us, coming here there was this phase where you feel a lot of guilt, especially myself. I was very guilty. I left. My sister already immigrated as well, so I have my oldest. So we're two, and my oldest sister lives in UK. She married an English guy, so she lives in UK. Been a while there. And my mom, my parents are divorced, so my mom was by herself, and all the both daughters are left. And you kind of feel guilty about it for a while, but then you realize that your life starts here, and when you kind of the roots that you're planting, you start to grow, expand here in the new country, you kind of see, no, but this makes sense. It makes sense. It still makes a lot of sense for us. We never regretted our decision. We're very happy here as a family. They can see that. And at the moment they see that and they see it's better, for some reason it's better, it fits, they approve. But they always be sad as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Even my mom was kind of sad. But then she came to see me when I was in New Zealand, and she understood why I decided to leave Italy.
Yeah.
And she was happy for me. She's always been happy for me. She was like sad I wasn't there. But our parents, as you said, they're sad, but at the same time, they're happy for us because we follow our dreams and we try to get the best of our lives.
Yeah, I think it's the power of love, the parents' love, right?
Yeah. But at the same time, like, I don't know, living 5 years in this limbo, I found, I don't know, maybe for me, I think, especially having a family, you kind of feel like, you know what, let's just settle down and start a life, because you keep living in this limbo and you're never like a start a life. As you said, you're always there. You don't buy new furniture. It just must be like a stressful in a way that you don't really live fully your life.
It was. There was the decision was so solid in us that we really wanted to move away. I think maybe because the decision of coming back from Australia was hard. And then we never knew if we took the right decision or not for a long time. Now we know we did the right thing of moving back from Australia to Brazil and then to Brazil to Canada. We were 100% certain of this decision. But for a while, we left Australia, which was kind of this paradise where it was only the two of us and living this romantic kind of 20 years age dream where you kind of free your spirit and all your student visa, you can just do a casual work and life is different. And then you move back to Brazil and you have to really study your careers. And so there was this transitioning of kind of becoming a proper adult going back to Brazil. And then we finally decided, so no, we don't want to do this here. We really want to become adults, proper adults, even if we were already adults. But we really want to grow our lives together somewhere else. So when we had this moment of decision, it was so solid in us, and waiting for it to happen, it was really frustrating, especially when we have the visas. Not denied because it didn't went to that stage of having a visa denial, but the paperwork was wrong, so all the paperwork would come back. And there were a few moments where we thought it's not going to happen. And those moments were dark. Like I remember talking to my husband and I'm saying, okay, what are our options? Are we going to somewhere in South America? We just wanted to move out. For some reason, we have this bug. And it's not that Brazil is not good. It's just that we really wanted to experience living overseas.
A different kind of culture. As you said, you feel like you were immersed with Anglo-Saxon culture. Yeah. And then you kind of like it and then you kind of miss it. I totally understand that, yeah.
It is not just the culture. It is the thing of living overseas. It's fun. It's just exciting to get to know people from different cultures, from different countries, and having to speak a different language every single day of my life. Like, it's not natural. Even if I'm fluent now, it's still not natural. And those challenges every day are different from just being a regular person in Brazil, following what everyone else is doing. I don't know. We were okay. We were very comfortable in Brazil. We could have stayed there forever, but it wasn't enough. It's hard to explain unless you've lived that.
I totally understand. A question, because I interviewed another person on the show that was from Brazil. And the reason why he left Brazil was because he didn't feel safe. You were living in São Paulo, which is one of the biggest cities in the world. Did you feel safe in São Paulo?
No. The way you're putting the question, yes, I felt safe because I lived in a good neighborhood and it's ridiculous, but we have security on every building in where the neighborhood I lived. So it's kind of crazy. So we were in a good neighborhood where you wouldn't be unsafe, but at the same time, you weren't safe. So it's not that it's kind of you living in a place where it's in war. You kind of know where to go and what to do and how to behave to be safe. So nothing ever happened to me. And I only know a few people among my friends that have been robbed, mugged, gun pointed or whatever. But it's there. So the crime is there. The thing is that the structure of São Paulo got in a way that if you kind of don't follow those guidance, those rules, you will be in a bad spot, a very bad spot. So, for example, one of the things that we noticed as soon as we arrived in Canada after spending so long in Brazil is that Canada has kids walking the street without parents, just walking around, wandering around from school to home or to play date or whatever, or to go to the park. You don't see that in São Paulo anymore. So if you have a kid in São Paulo, you will have to pick them up inside the school. So you drive your car through as if it was in a hotel entrance. So you drive through the gate, go inside, pick your kid gets into the car, and then you go outside off the gate, where the guards are checking on you, and then you go free.
Oh, wow.
So how scary it is, but you get so used to this system that you don't feel unsafe, but at the same time, you never feel safe. It's kind of weird what I'm saying, but you learn how to behave, how to protect yourself. But it is unsafe. It is an unsafe country for sure.
But was that one of the reasons that you wanted to...
One of the biggest. for sure. Besides all this that I said about having this bug, this need of loving to travel, getting to know new cultures, and experiencing this different system of Anglo-Saxon system, the crime rates in Brazil are crazy, not getting better. I can't see it getting better for the next generation. So we didn't want to expose our kids for not having this freedom of going out, going to the grocery shop by themselves. You wouldn't let a kid do that by themselves anymore in Brazil.
Yeah, that's exactly what Luis said about living in Brazil, that you always have to be aware of what's going on. And when he moved, in this case, he moved to New Zealand, and one of the biggest upside was that he didn't have to worry about what was going on. You could just relax. He felt more relaxed in a way.
Yes. You wouldn't open a laptop on a train. You wouldn't take your phone out, even on your car to make a FaceTime call with someone if it's an expensive phone. People can just gunpoint and rob you, and if you don't give it, kill you for that. And people will get that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, again, I don't know anyone that, to be honest, I know a few people that have been robbed that way and been around certain stress of being kidnapped for the night and things like that, but not that often because you kind of learn how to protect yourself. I'm saying this because if we think about tourists going to Brazil, they need to know how to behave. They need to learn. I wish there was a course for tourists to go to Brazil and protect themselves. But again, it is a beautiful country. It is a place to go and visit. It's not that 100% dangerous. You just need to learn your ways. But we didn't like to leave on that stress forever. That's one of the main reasons we left.
The thing that you didn't feel safe, or you saw that the crime or this problem in Brazil, did that amplify once you went overseas, that you saw the reality overseas? When you went back, did you see that amplify more than they used to it?
To be honest, I think it was even a little better. But you start to get more concerned. So things that I used to do, I was already in the manners of doing it. So I had already my ways of doing it. I wouldn't do it anymore. So before, I remember I used to walk in the neighborhood. My neighborhood, as I said, it was quite safe. So I used to walk. My mom lived in the same neighborhood. I would go stroller with my baby to her house and carry all the backpacks and things that I would have to carry. But now I wouldn't do that. And I wouldn't even carry a bag with me because I was too afraid, or even a phone. I wouldn't carry a phone with me. I would just keep it at home and talk to someone in the other place. So I changed. I became more scared of Brazil, but I don't think Brazil changed in terms of more crime or less crime. I think it's just the same. I just don't know anymore how to behave that well as I used to do.
So you moved from Brazil, which is like a nice and warm place, to Toronto, which is not as warm in winter. How did you get used to it? And what made you stay in Toronto and not try something else?
I think there's a saying in Brazil, I don't know if we can use it here in English, but we always joke in Brazil that cold is psychological, of course, because we don't have a cold winter there. Yeah. So it's just a matter of putting a good jacket and don't think about it. But there is a learning curve. There was, for me at least, a learning curve about the winter. I won't tell you that I enjoy being cold. I don't, but I learned how to dress properly. So I do agree with the Canadians when they say there's no bad weather, there's bad clothing, something like that. And I agree. We learned as the years passed. So I think it's been 7. We're coming to their 7th winter now. And it's so much easier now. It's just, okay, just now the snow is coming and it's fun. And we enjoy the snow. We do a lot of sports in the snow, especially my husband. He loves to... And the kids love to go snowboarding or sledding or ice skating. Whatever we can do outside, we do, even if it's minus 20. But yes, I still complain because it's long. I think the winter is long. If it was just a little bit shorter, that would be fine. And the mild seasons, especially here in Toronto, the mild seasons aren't too comfortable enough for you to take your jacket out, but not cold enough to hold you inside. So as soon as you learn how to dress up, you can enjoy the mild seasons as well. Because at the beginning, I would only go out in summer and stay in all year, like 9 months in. It doesn't make sense. So now I'm okay. I embrace it. But I heard some immigrants that have been here for longer, like 20 years or 15 years or 25 years, and they say it gets tired. They get tired of it. After a while, living through this process of changing seasons and coats and gear, you get tired and you do want to become, how they call it, the winter birds, the spring birds, but they fly away, the winter birds, when they fly away.
They immigrate somewhere else?
Yeah.
I don't know what's the terminology
of
that.
Is.
Yeah.
I just forgot there is. But anyway.
Which I heard a lot of people in Vancouver, people that can afford it, people that just move to the US, move somewhere else warmer over the winter because it's cold, it's wet, it's not super nice. I never heard like so many people that they do that. They immigrate for 6 months a year somewhere else. It's not a bad way of living if you can afford it.
Yeah. Maybe when we grow old, we will be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe when you retire or something. I don't know. And do you have any regrets about leaving your country?
No, I should, but I don't.
Okay.
No, it was a very solid decision. We're very happy here. Yeah, we still live in a dream. Like we visioned this for so long that it's finally happening. So we're still in joy. We're still in that state of joy every time we see snow, every time we go out and we see the beautiful neighborhood and beautiful people, and the Canadians are amazing. We haven't talked much about the Canadians, but it was a very solid decision to come to Canada against Australia. Australians are also amazing, but it's a different vibe. It's a very welcoming country, and I love the people here, and we're so happy to be raising our kids here.
So when you moved to Canada, was the first time ever you went to Canada, or you have a taste of Canada before?
No, I did. As a teenager, I came here to visit and had vacations here, and I liked it a lot.
Oh, okay. So that was probably one of the reasons you picked Canada?
Yeah. It was a summer time when I came, and I had a good impression of that. And I had friends and family that had lived here, and they loved it. We knew about Canada a lot. It was a good search. And before we immigrated, my husband did not know Canada. We immigrated, and I think he had a business trip here once or twice, but it wasn't solid for him as it was for me. But he was very keen of it because of the landscape and winter sports. So it was just meant to be.
What was the biggest upside about immigrating?
I think it's that living a dream. So we visioned it for so long that it was great where we were. Even if we had stayed in Brazil, we were very lucky. We were fortunate there to have a good lifestyle. We were progressing on our careers. We had family around. We were happy there. But for some reason, we have this inside us. And I say us because it's a solid decision. I don't know if I have done it by myself. Probably I did because I still embrace this feeling, but it would be harder to make this decision. But we're just super happy here. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Everything's working well, and we don't see ourselves coming back. Maybe immigrating one day to Australia, but not to Brazil.
Maybe when your life there feels like normal and you're still dreaming about moving abroad. You're like, okay, I feel like this is my country now. Okay, let's move abroad again. Let's live the dream again.
That's living the dream. Yeah, there is something like that. Of course, we don't like to settle down. I think there's something in my personality and my husband's personality. We're okay. If we have to move again, we would move again.
Would you do that for your kids so they can live another culture?
That's a great question. Yes and no. It's the toughest question of all. So sometimes we do say, let's just joking. Let's move to somewhere else. Let's move to US this time. And we could, if we really wanted. You always make it happen. If it's a dream, you make it happen. There are always ways. But then we think, okay, but now we have 3 kids. And is it fair for them to do that? So they're finally in school and making new friends and living this life. Is it fair to take them out of that and just move them around? Or that will be a great experience for them and a growth experience in the other hand. So they're still young. And we don't have anywhere to go now. We're happy here. So for now, that's it. But maybe in a few years, you can interview me when we see.
Maybe like a part 2 of the interview. And do you think like your kids still having the culture from the Brazilian culture? Are you guys able to give that culture living with you guys? They are both from Brazil.
Yes, we do embrace a lot of it, especially Portuguese. We speak Portuguese at home. We focus hard on that. We're very strict, even as much as we can with that. So we really try. It's getting harder, especially with my second daughter. So I have a 8 years old, 4 years old, and 1 year old. The 8 years old, she's fluent in both. She switches very nicely. The 4 years old, she's now starting to speak more preference for English than Portuguese, but she knows both. But it's getting harder for us to make the Portuguese come as natural as we want it to. But we keep trying. And in terms of culture, we have our family connected on FaceTime, on FaceChat all the time. So I think the family brings a lot of our culture and the way we cook, the way we dress, the way we speak, the way we socialize. We socialize with a lot of Brazilians. So most of our friends are Brazilians still. And we keep all the traditions, all the cultures, everything we do in Brazil, we replicate here. And of course, the vacations. This is a very important topic for us. We haven't had an opportunity to go as much as especially now with COVID and everything, but we really want to be that family that goes at least once or twice, coming back and forth from family to go to have contact with someone, or us in Brazil, or they coming over. Our house is just an extension of Brazil. But of course, the Canadian culture is coming through them for us. And for us, it's a learning curve there.
Yeah, but I mean, for the kids, they're growing up with this two culture, like the Canadian culture when they're outside and the Brazilian culture when in the house with the family. Even then, they grow up knowing two different cultures. So if you decide to move abroad, that will be the third culture they will get immersed into.
Yeah, I haven't thought of that. That's true.
Yeah, so they already have two culture. They already aware of two different cultures.
They do. Yeah, it's funny. And we are learning a lot with them about the Canadian culture, which is amazing how much school really teaches the culture itself. This contact with the Canadian life, it's coming through the kids much more than just the professional life that we have here. I think the base values of the Canadians you can see coming from school or this young age education is really interesting. My passion is understanding the cultures and the values behind it and why people react this way or that way. And it's fascinating to see how the kids embrace it naturally.
And going back in time, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Tough one. Tough question. Well, that's the thing, because we had so many phases. I would speed everything up. So I think the sooner I arrive as an immigrant to a country would be, I don't know if I would have done that. That's a good question, honestly. I don't know if I know how to answer it. No, because every stage that I had, so going to Australia and learning a lot of it and deciding that immigration was an option, and then going back to Brazil and making sure this was the best decision or not, and then deciding to immigrate. If I hadn't had this process, probably I wouldn't be sure of my decision as much as I am now.
Yeah, you're right. Even just the fact that you waited for so long, maybe even that increased the desire to actually move abroad.
Yeah.
And do you have any particular advice you like to give to the listeners if somebody wants to leave Brazil or their country?
It's not for everyone. I think you have to have it in your heart. And if you come, it doesn't work, home is always back home. So just go back and try it over again. And then you decide again. So this is the beauty of immigrating. You can always go back home if you don't fit, if you don't feel it's right. And I know a lot of people that have done that, and they're happy after doing it, and they have this experience of living abroad and going back and being happy. And they're the other way as well, and people that are more certain of their decisions because they tried. So it doesn't matter what you choose. It's a great experience. my advice would be to everyone that's young and wants to travel, go and travel. I mean, you will learn.
You got nothing to lose, especially when you're young.
Exactly. And just learn and experience.
Speaking of advice, you and your friends, Jadranka, have a blog where you help other people immigrating. The blog is called The Practical Immigrant.
Yes.
And you guys shared topics like how much it costs living in Canada, all these kind of tips for people to move abroad, to move to Canada. What made you to start this blog?
Yeah, this is one of the beautiful things about immigration. So first, I think the story starts with my friendship with Jadranka. She's from Serbia, a country that I had no knowledge about, and I just learned in school that they had a war, and that was it. Sorry, she's from Bosnia, but she's Serbian. So we met at because of our kids they went together at school in Toronto, and we met and we connected straight away, and we realized that it didn't matter where she was from or where I was from. We were exactly the same, like very similar personalities, very similar values and culture, and we started a great friendship. And most of our friendship, of course, when you sit down to chat, you chat about immigration and the struggles and the things, and you share tips and hints and tricks and hacks about immigrants' life. And we were neighbors. We lived close by. She immigrated before I did, so she has a few years of immigration in advance, and she taught me a lot about how school works, how to any type of more different questions that we haven't yet discussed. She was my source, and I could help her with the career details because that's my focus on career. Anyway, we would be always sharing, and then we decided, you know what, we could share this to more people because we are always talking about this, and let's start writing a blog. And that's how it happened. So we start writing a blog. And we can see it's growing. The audience is growing. We can see a need for questions there, and people are liking it. We try to share our stories, our version, what we call practicality of Canada, life in Canada. Of course, it's our prism, our version, and it's just fun. It's just fun to share those stories. We love it.
Those stories and those information that you share can really help others because, for example, I didn't know anything about Vancouver or how much the life in Canada costs. Probably because I never did any research, but mostly I don't even know how much information there are out there to actually know how much exactly costs the life in living in Canada. And that's a way. I mean, you were lucky at least you have the opportunity to taste Canada before you made the decision. But for people, maybe they want to, I can't afford to go back and forth. Maybe that's the only choice. Having blog like yours where they can have a taste of Canada and be more prepared about Canada, so they would make a better decision when they are deciding to move abroad.
Yeah, for sure. That's the main idea, and you touch a very important point. So we do our research as well. We don't just want to put our personal opinion. We do researches and very solid research on top of everything that we write to make sure we're getting accurate information and where people really can rely on that information. And it will have different verticals where we will, subjects that we will touch. But the idea is to help. It's to help on that. But also it's fun to share. Just as an immigrant, everyone likes to share their stories. So it's a way of us putting ourselves out and giving that extra hand if possible. But yeah, thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. If somebody relates with your story or wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, they can check our blog. I think the practicalimmigrant.com is our blog. There's a little bit of us there. And they can reach out to me on my email. Well, I think you're going to leave it there.
Yeah, I can put everything in the show notes for people that wants to find all the links.
Yeah, it will be fun for sure. I would love to hear everyone's opinion and stories. I'm passionate about that. And thank you so much, Dario. This was amazing, and it's fun to get to know someone from New Zealand. Italian, New Zealand, Italian. It's getting confused, right?
Yeah, my ex-girlfriend used to call me like a Kitalian because I had the mix between Italian and English, and in Kiwi it was like a Kitalian.
Yeah, I'm fan. I keep saying New Zealand is I know you're Italian, but you lived so long in New Zealand. That's why I'm joking. But New Zealand is this beautiful land, piece of country. It's I call it as a virgin land still. When you travel on, I was lucky to be there because Australia is so close by. So we had opportunity to visit. And as you drive through it and you drive around and you just see this native land, piece of land still untouched by humans. Exactly. Yeah. It's amazing. It's just magical.
And it's so different. I was living on the East Coast in Christchurch in New Zealand. If you drive across the island, which only takes 3 hours, depending how fast you're driving, usually it's 3 hours to get to the other side, 3 or 4 hours, whatever. And you can see the vegetation, the landscape changes so often. It's beautiful. It changes constantly. You don't have this island is always the same. No. You have everything from the sandy with Palm Beach to the south where you can see the Alps and you can see the glacier.
Yeah,
the fjords. There. And if you go to Fjordland, you can find the fjords. It's just such a stunning country. And the culture, I really like the culture, and I really fit in with the culture, and then what I miss mostly from New Zealand, the culture there.
Yeah, well, let's see. What life holds.
Exactly. You never know. You never know.
You never know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sylvia. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. You can find the show notes with everything we discussed at immigrantslife.com/episode 26. If you want to support the show, you can share this episode with your friends, and you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for Immigrants Life. And if you want to share your story on the show, you can visit immigrantslife.com/yourstory. Thanks again for listening. Talk to you in the next one. Ciao.